Hello. January is drawing to an end. Next week we will be in February. I will also have my video about the games I think look the most interesting that are releasing in February. But for now, let's take a look at the week that's been, the releases, the news, the announcements, and we'll end by taking a look at the lineup for next week. Let's get into it. Let's start off with the most interesting indie games that released and how they performed. Cool to see that Tokyo Extreme Racer had the second highest peak of players out of all games releasing this week. Right after Final Fantasy, can't really beat that big of a title, with 14,000. I was expecting more from Final Fantasy, but it sits at 28,000. Although I am recording this on Friday, yesterday was my birthday, so a lot of plans for this weekend. But I would surely say that Final Fantasy will probably have its peak during the weekend. The weekend will obviously result in more players as everyone is off work. Impressively enough, Tokyo Extreme Racer also sits at overwhelmingly positive on Steam, with 96% of the reviews being positive, with 1,800 reviews as of recording. Amazing to see, really cool. I don't know if this was a surprise release, or if I just missed it, but Ender Magnolia Bloom of the Mist released this week. I've played this one a bit, and it's amazing. A Metroidvania set in a dark fantasy world, where you gain these companions and can use their skills to get around and for combat. The game peaked at 13,600 players, and puts it in third place, and with over 5,000 reviews, it also sits at overwhelmingly positive, with 96% of the reviews being positive. Crazy, but well deserved. And for perspective, out of these 5,180 reviews, 178 are negative. Joton Slayer Hordes of Hell has done reasonably well for itself. A peak play count of 3,400 with 857 reviews as of recording, with 86% of them being positive. I have a video on the game, I'll link it below if you want to see more from the game. It is in early access and will stay there for about 6 months. I do like the game, it just feels a bit generic in almost every way. But hopefully that will change before 1.0. My week have mostly been spent playing Heroes of Hammerwatch 2. I have a review for it, but in short, it's a very fun and addictive ARPG with roguelite elements. A great balance between adventuring and rebuilding a town. I also got a key for Age of Darkness Final Stand, and I must say I'm very impressed by the game. It's been in early access since 2021 and recently released into 1.0. This is a single-player RTS with a focus on survival. The game has a full campaign and then a survival mode that can be played in co-op with a friend. The survival mode has a few factions to choose from, a bunch of difficulties, and this game is actually made by Playside, the same studio that made Kill Knight. A very different game, but a really good one as well. This studio is really on a roll for me. But let's move on to news. Palworld has released a roadmap for the upcoming features, and these include co-op crossplay, world transfer of pals, world tree/ending scenario. It was kind of a bummer the first time you played the game that you couldn't get to the tree, it just taunted you in the distance, but hopefully that will change now. Further ways to strengthen and improve pals, various new content such as new pals and technologies, game collaborations including Terraria. Collaborations between games is so popular, and I wouldn't really expect Terraria, but it could be interesting. And then in other improvements, you have improvements to the world object placement, to already existing pals, optimization, and improvements to the UX. So hopefully that will satisfy a lot of players this upcoming year. You have heard about a game called Hollow Knight Silksong, right? Yeah, it seems like the game still exists. At the end of the last week, we got some information about the game, kind of. This is all from an article written by IGN. You'll find the link below for the full thing. And some wild theories surrounding William Pellen's X account emerged. He is the co-creator of Silksong, and on January 15th, he switched his profile picture to a cake and wrote "Something big is coming, keep your eyes closed tomorrow." The theory on internet was that he was referring to the Nintendo Switch announcement that happened the day after on January 16th. Fans also took a closer look at the cake picture and found out that it belongs to a recipe for Brooklyn Blackout Cake on a cooking website, Bon Appetit. The date the recipe was published was April 2nd, 2024. The date of the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct is April 2nd, 2025. This is too funny. The length people go to. The story doesn't end here either. Hollow Knight YouTuber Fireborn tweeted to say that the marketing and publishing chief Griffin had gotten in touch to confirm that the tweets were a nothing burger. He apologizes to have misled anyone and that the cake was a lie. I found this kind of amazing. Griffin himself also followed up with a response that the game is real, it is progressing and will be released. So hey, the game still exists, they still are working on it. It's been 60 years since it was announced. And yeah, only time will tell if 60 years in development has been a good thing or a bad thing for the game. Another surprise this week was the cancellation of Earthblade. This is from the studio that made Celeste, one of the biggest platforming and speedrunning games out there. This comes from a blog post on their site where they talked about the studio fracturing due to disagreements about the IP rights of Celeste. With a solution to the disagreement, one of the founding members also left the studio, which led to them taking a look at how Earthblade was progressing. And simply put, it wasn't coming along at the pace they wanted. It was much more of a struggle and became exhausting to work on the game. And the added pressure of Celeste's success led them to take the decision of cancelling the game. This isn't the end for the studio, however. They are looking at new, smaller projects. Kinda sad to hear, but you always need to put yourself first above everything else. And working on a project you don't believe in, I don't think that's a good thing. So I think they made the right decision, even if a lot of fans might be disappointed. You can find the link for the full blog post below. We also had a bunch of games that have been announced this past week, so let's take a look. Order 13 released a teaser trailer showing off the game.
Package at a time. Your job is simple. Gather items, pack them up, and send them out. Your cozy companion will keep the rats in check.
This is a warehouse simulator that seems to have some horror aspects to it. And of course, a cat. Eternal Strand released a launch trailer for the game. There is now also a demo available for it, but the game will be released on the 28th of January. This is a third-person action-adventure game that seems to utilize elements in a good and interesting way. A release date trailer for Sworn is out. A co-op roguelite set in Arthurian legend, where Camelot has fallen and Arthur and his knights are corrupted. I like the style and the gameplay looks on point as well. Release is set for 6th of February, and if you can't wait for this one, there is a demo for it as well. Die in the Dungeon also released a release date trailer. A lot of them this week. This is a deck building turn-based roguelike where you don't use cards, instead you use dice. I think this one looks great, can't wait to play this one. Release is planned for 21st of February. There is an origin version of the game for free if you want to play it early. A gameplay overview trailer released for Duchy. I really love weird puzzle/strategy games, and this one looks amazing. I do have a hard time explaining the game. The trailer does a much better job of this, so check it out if you want to know more about the game. But it has roguelike elements, a Tetris system for building the board, you collect resources, recruit soldiers, you have attack rounds. Yeah, there is a lot in this game. It looks complex, but also like a lot of fun. If you're interested in digging a hole, a game about digging a hole will soon be released. Yes, that is the title of the game. In the game, you dig a hole in your backyard to find stuff and to sell it. It's a simple premise and will surely be more successful than anyone can ever imagine with this simple premise. Release is planned for 7th of February. Over the Hill was just revealed. This is a game about exploring the world with off-road vehicles. You can explore by yourself or with friends. By the trailer, it looks like you want to do this with friends. It looks kind of boring to play this alone. Looks like a very chill game. I wonder a bit about the actual gameplay. Will there be objectives, unlocks, or is it just do whatever you want kind of an experience? And finally, let's take a look at the upcoming week. And from the looks of it looks stacked. We have Space Engineers 2.
Welcome back, Engineer. After 10,000 years in cryosleep, you have awakened to a new dawn in the Almagist system.
I played the first one for a bit, and it's just a giant space sandbox basically, where you explore, build, all that kind of good stuff. It will be released into early access, and the plan is to have it in early access for approximately 3 years. So I would say they have big plans for this game. Coming in with the second biggest following for releases next week is Heart of the Machine. Personally, never heard of this game, but you are the first sentient AI. So this is kind of a strategy RPG game where you influence the world, raise your machine armies, defeat your foes, and this all takes place in a city that is partly handcrafted and partly procedurally generated, with thousands of buildings and millions of citizens. It releases into early access and will stay in early access for about a year. We also have Eternal Strands, as we talked about earlier. I do think this one looks great, and it's kind of nice to see a mid-size RPG that just oozes potential. Hopefully it's not too generic and has an interesting story attached to what looks like good gameplay. Then we also have an Orc Must Die game releasing next week. I think this is their fourth one. It's called Deathtrap. By now I think everyone have heard about this series, but it's basically like a tower defense game where you lay traps to defend yourself against orcs. This one can be played in 4-player co-op. I don't have the biggest knowledge about these games, but I mean, it looks bigger and better than the last one. Citizen Sleeper 2 Starward Vector is also releasing next week. A dice-driven RPG that looks to expand upon what the first game did in every way. Really love the visuals of this game, but I think it falls a bit outside of what I actually like, but I might give it a chance. The second game in Tales of Iron will also be released, Whiskers of Winter. This one is a 2D action RPG set in a world run by animals. A dark and brutal world, I must say. Stone of Madness is also releasing, a real-time tactical stealth game. We don't see many of these days. Set in the 18th century Spain, in a monastery where you try to escape. You have a few different characters with different specialities, and they need to work together in order to escape the monastery. I think these games will be some of the top games next week, but in total it looks like there are 334 games releasing next week. According to SteamDB, that is crazy. But again, we'll see if something interesting surfaces next week and takes one of the top positions. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you want a notification for my upcoming recommendations for indie games releasing in February. Otherwise, have a great day or evening, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!